Tesla Model S is a very complete luxury performance EV, but to create something very special, its American manufacturer has added more power to create this top Plaid version, a Model S that has gained extra speed without really sacrificing anything. It has 1,020 horsepower, goes 200 miles an hour, gets to 60 miles an hour in under 2 seconds, and costs a fraction over £100,000. The best electric car yet? Possibly. The fastest? For now, certainly. Tesla specialises in going against convention, and with this car, the Model S Plaid, it does so once more. It's the ultimate version of the Model S, a car that until 2019 offered an unremarkable top-spec variant featuring a performance badge. This tri-motor Plaid variant switched things up a gear when it arrived in 2020 with a level of performance that decimated the luxury EV opposition. The designation Plaid comes from the parody film Spaceballs, released in 1987. In this movie, a spaceship reaches ludicrous speed, a designation previously used for quick drive modes on top Teslas, and then the ultimate Plaid speed, representing the pinnacle of performance. And this car aims to offer exactly that, though disappointingly it's only offered in our market with left-hand drive. In compensation though, it's claimed to be the fastest accelerating production car in the world. To find out more, you're going to need the usual comprehensive car and driving road test. If, like Elon Musk, you're the kind of person for whom too much is never enough, then only the top tri-motor Plaid version we're trying here will do. Musk once promised us there'd be an even faster Plaid Plus variant, subsequently cancelled. And it's hard to imagine how fast that would have been, because this ordinary Plaid is in every way extraordinary against the stopwatch. An extra motor added onto the rear axle boosts total power output to an astonishing 1,020 horsepower, split roughly 30-70 between the front and rear axles. There's a 421 horsepower motor at the front and two 414 horsepower motors at the rear, these altogether generating a scarcely believable 1,420 Newton meters of torque on tap. As a result, Tesla claims a 0 to 60 mile an hour time of just 1.99 seconds, which, should you be able to replicate it, would make this the world's fastest accelerating production car. Top speed is 200 miles an hour. The only car with 4 or 5 seats that can get remotely close to this kind of pace is Porsche's Taycan Turbo GT, and that's vastly more expensive. For this kind of acceleration, you need to engage the car's provided drag strip drive mode, which sets the car into what Tesla calls its cheetah stance, lowering the front to combat front-end lift, giving the front motor the best chance of getting its torque to the tarmac. You'd hardly ever bother with that unless you were engaging in tire-smoking test track heroics, nor would you usually concern yourself with the provided track mode settings the car offers to vary handling balance, stability assist, and regenerative braking. That track section has settings for drifting, post-lap cooling, and brake temperatures, plus a dash cam for recording your circuit exploits. Even in its more ordinary, public road-orientated sporty drive modes, this car remains frantically fast. Engage Plaid and 60 mile an hour flashes by in 2.7 seconds. In sport, which you'll prefer because it gives you a bit more throttle travel to play with, the sprint time is 3.7 seconds, which is still quicker than, say, Ford's fastest production model, the Mach-E GT. It's a bit of a different story if you stick to the more normal chill drive setting that you'll need to get anywhere near this Model S Plaid's quoted EV drive range figure of 373 miles, 21 miles less than the ordinary dual motor version. With chill engaged in a Model S Plaid, 60 miles an hour takes 7.3 seconds. stick to the fast modes, and the reality of this car's performance is difficult to accurately share. There's a roller coaster like strap in and hold on vibe with instant urge that means overtakes don't really need to be planned, they just happen. And when the road opens up and your right foot flexes, the horizon streams towards you as if on fast forward, reminding you that the Model S Plaid still holds the coveted Nürburgring Nordschleife lap record for an electric production car. But as we suggested earlier, ultimate speed isn't the same thing as ultimate driving engagement, an area where Tesla still has work to do if it's to match longer established brand rivals like Porsche in this segment. But Musk and his men are getting there, as we've realised in comparing our driving notes against the last time we tried a Model S in its original form. Ride quality in this updated design is very much better, even on this test car's big 21-inch wheels. And that's a crucial improvement because for all its speed, this is a luxury conveyance first and foremost. To achieve this, Tesla's standardised air springs and completely redesigned the suspension, changing it from a 4-link to a more sophisticated 5-link setup. The resulting damping isn't quite class-leading, but set the car in its supplest comfort drive mode and it cruises over tarmac tears and speed humps in its default medium suspension height setting. Most of the time you'll leave the air springs in their automatic setting, which is linked to GPS data, so when the car knows it's on a highway, it'll lower itself to reduce drag. But you might want to intervene too, say if you're visiting someone with a steep driveway. In that situation, you can raise the ride height to suit to a high or very high setting. Better still, the car will remember the adjustment that you've made and log its GPS location, so that if you ever return to the same driveway, the ride height will automatically be raised once more as you approach. Via the center screen, you can even access complicated suspension compression and rebound data. Earlier we talked about this car's hushed refinement. Well, that's impressive, but we should also point out that six-figure segment rivals, Porsche's Taycan Turbo for instance, now do better. And cars like that also offer a much better braking setup, mainly because, amazingly, Tesla still hasn't yet got round to developing a stopping system that blends regenerative and friction braking together, the kind of thing that you'll find in virtually every modern EV these days. Instead, with the Model S, even this very fast one, the disc brakes are only worked by the pedal. Regen only activates when you lift off the throttle and won't helpfully cut in to assist should you be forced to slam on all the anchors. And trying to arrest 1,020 horsepower merely with a set of conventional steel discs is, we suspect, a recipe for steaming brakes in fairly short order should you take to the track with this car. Talking of brake regen, unlike its rivals, Tesla's never bothered with offering its customers lots of options for varying the strength of brake energy harvesting. Now, you might also be interested to know that a Model S can now tow up to 1,600 kilograms. An incorporated trailer mode will help here. There's also a provided slip start system to help free the vehicle in snow, sand or mud. Let's finish with a word on driver assist tech, since it's such a major part of this car's considerable repertoire. As almost everyone knows by now, this Model S has so many cameras, sonars and radar sensors with real-time traffic updates that Tesla, if it was allowed to by legislation, could easily set it up to completely drive itself without the driver even needing to look through the windscreen. It's a bit ironic then that the self-driving capability this car is currently allowed to have, covered off by what Tesla calls its autopilot system, is pretty rudimentary by current class standards. There's an intrusive lane keep assist system, adaptive cruise control that's slow to accelerate, and a lane following feature that can't tolerate any manual steering corrections at all, which might encourage you to turn it off. For all that though, we still love the sheer connectedness of this car. To take just one example, if you sync your Model S with your online calendar, it'll check current traffic conditions to determine how much time is needed to make your first meeting of the day. In the morning, it can turn on its climate control system in readiness for you and even open your garage door before you stroll in. Plus, in other markets, and probably soon in this one, it can be programmed to pull itself out of its garage and meet you at the curb. In other words, you get the point. This is still, in every sense, quite a game changer, as Tesla always intended that it should be. Very little differentiates the look of this top Plaid variant from a standard Model S dual motor derivative, which means it shares all the changes recently made to update this long-running design. Plaid identifiers include a bespoke lower front splitter, while at the rear there's a revised rear diffuser and a subtle spoiler on the boot lid. There are big 21-inch wheels too, though you can add rims of that size to the dual motor version, but on the Plaid they come with red brake calipers. There aren't really any Plaid identifying changes within this Model S's completely updated interior, which unfortunately seats you on the wrong side of the cabin thanks to this car's newfound left-hand drive only production format. There's the option of fitting the weirdest steering wheel we've ever seen, a yoke-style tiller cut in half like the tiller from a spaceship, though the conventional wheel that we're trying here is available as an option. This 17-inch landscape format central screen was introduced as part of the most recent set of Model S updates. One change we'd expected that hasn't happened is that there's still a separate instrument screen ahead of you. On smaller Teslas, drive instruments are confined to the near side of the central monitor. In true Tesla fashion, it's very minimalistic in here, even more so now that the brand has done away with the column stalks previously provided for indicating and gear changes. Instead, the Model S guesses your intended direction of travel and requires you to confirm its prediction by tapping the brake pedal, or you can just use a provided slider on the side of the center screen. As for the wipers and indicators, well, they're now controlled with capacitive buttons on the steering tiller. The car uses its cameras and a steering angle sensor to know when to cancel the indicators, which seems a very complicated way of fixing something that didn't really need to be fixed. In the rear, the standards of head and legroom on offer are unremarkable for a car in this class, but what is impressive is this car's ability to comfortably look after 3 fully sized adults. Headroom's good, even for 6-footers, but the rear seat squab is set quite low in relation to the floor, which doesn't deliver an ideal seating position. There's no third row seating option as there used to be on a Model S, but you do get this glorious large panoramic glass roof as standard. Out back, you get a simply huge 793 litre boot, extendable to 1,645 litres with the inflexibly orientated 60-40 split rear bench flattened. There's also an 89 litre frunk for the charging leads under the bonnet. The price of this car has varied quite a lot since it was first introduced. As we filmed in early spring 2024, it was pitched at around £102,000, around £15,000 more than the standard dual motor version, though for most customers monthly payment stats will be more relevant as they'll be taking ownership of a lease deal. It's worth mentioning that at the time of filming it wasn't possible to custom order a Model S of any kind in the UK. Instead, you had to go to the Tesla website and pick from an inventory of completely new cars, though there's a reasonable number to choose from. As for rivals for Model S Plaid, well, it's no longer quite true to say that there's nothing like it. Porsche's Taycan Turbo GT gets within a whisker of this top Tesla's thrilling performance, but will cost you vastly, vastly more. Supposedly very fast competitors in the segment, like the Mercedes-AMG EQE 4MATIC Plus and the Audi RS e-tron, aren't really in the same performance ballpark, but cost more anyway. If, having considered all of that and tried this car to make sure that you're not put off by the left-hand drive format, if you're still interested, then you'll want to know about standard kit and about the specification options. So let's take a look at that now. The specification bit isn't too difficult. At the time of filming, there were just 2 exterior paint choices, solid black, or as in this case, deep blue metallic. and 3 interior colour shades. Most of the inventory cars we saw came cabin finished in either cream or all black trim. You can choose between the yoke, steering wheel, or stick with a conventional one like that we've been trying here. And there are 21-inch wheels. Standard, of course, is the usual high level of Tesla media tech, accessible via the car's huge 17-inch centre touchscreen. This is your access point for a built-in 22-speaker, 960-watt audio system, Google Maps navigation system, a web browser and streaming services. Plus you can access various apps like Spotify, though Tesla still refuses to build in Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. This top Model S Plaid version's 373-mile range is way better than that of a comparably priced Mercedes-AMG EQE 53 4MATIC Plus, which manages 291 miles, and also looks good against its nearest performing direct rival, Porsche's Taycan Turbo GT, 345 miles. Though it's worth mentioning that an ordinary Taycan Turbo would take you 394 miles. As with any EV, what you get from this Tesla in the real world is, of course, another question. On this test with this Plaid version, we've been getting regular consumption of around 3.1 miles per kilowatt hour, which isn't really that much better than we were getting from this car back when we originally tested it in 2013, despite the larger, more efficient battery, the sleeker aerodynamics. 0.208 CD is industry leading, and the weight savings that Tesla's tried to make. This Plaid version, for instance, weighs 45 kilograms less, 2,162 kilograms, than the performance model it replaced. The center screen's energy section has a miles consumed graph, which compares your actual consumption with the energy usage that the car predicted at the beginning of your trip. Even if you ignore driving range figures, there's still a compelling reason to choose a Model S over an EV from another brand, and it'll be obvious when the time comes to pull back the neatly disguised panel around the offside rear light cluster and replenish your battery power. We'll get to that unique selling point in a moment, but first let's cover charging speeds. Both versions of this Model S charge at up to 250 kilowatts. It's still a 400 volt charging system though, so you won't have access to the ultra-rapid 350 kilowatt ultra-rapid public chargers that you'd be able to use to full capacity with a rival Porsche Taycan or Audi e-tron GT Quattro, both cars that boast the 800 volt charging infrastructure that presumably Tesla will upgrade to at some point. At present, the company thinks this step to be unnecessary, and they could be right. As it is, a fast DC public charging point would replenish the 100 kilowatt hour battery, 95 kilowatt hour of which is usable, from 10 to 80% in 30 minutes, or from 10 to 90% in 38 minutes. Now to that unique selling point. This US brand is still the only manufacturer that's had the guts to put itself on the line by going out and creating its own exclusive high-power charging network, the Tesla Supercharger Network, which now features over 1,400 charging points spread across over 100 locations throughout the UK. Venture abroad and you'll find over 12,000 supercharger locations in Europe, with 50,000 worldwide. In Britain, the most southerly supercharger site location is Lifton in Devon, and the most northerly one is at Aviemore in Scotland. Each of these sites are only accessible to Tesla drivers. On top of that, there are the superchargers fitted in the brand's dealer network. And the company has installed a further 550 less powerful but still very useful so-called destination chargers in clubs, hotels and other public locations around the country, also exclusive to Tesla drivers and there to charge your car over a few hours. In other words, if you drive a Model S or any other Tesla, you're far more likely to be able to undertake a longer trip with mid-journey charging at a convenient point than you would be if you bought a different EV from another premium brand. That's a crucial advantage, particularly with the current patchy state of the European public EV charging infrastructure, especially as this Tesla can also be recharged at nearly all the other places other makers' electric vehicles can plug in. Earlier Model S's, which lacked the necessary CCS adapter, couldn't do this. In terms of other charging stations, your best bet is to find one of the 150 kilowatt Ionity charging points, but there still aren't as many of these around the UK as there should be. Websites like ZapMap are good for helping you find your nearest public charger. Or you could use your Model S's infotainment screen to organise your journey between charge stations. The car's trip planner will automatically guide you to a nearby supercharger if charging is required on your journey. Your Tesla will even direct you to the least busy supercharger site, advising how long to stay to charge, aiming to keep your battery within 20 to 80% when charging speeds are fastest at 250 kilowatts. Tesla's supercharger network has 99.5% uptime, and at the period of filming, costs levied were around 50 pence per kilowatt hour based on 250 kilowatt charging speeds. Obviously, most of your charging with this car will be done at home once you've had fitted the 7.4 kilowatt wall box that you couldn't really own this car without. Home charging with this car from empty to full takes 15 hours, 15 minutes. If your home or business has an 11 kilowatt three-phase supply, you could cut that time down to around 10 hours. Either way, it means that the usual EV manufacturer claim of full overnight charging is only just about justified and won't add up at all if you happen to have a late night and an early start. The car responds best to nightly recharges, but will happily sit for a couple of weeks at an airport while you holiday without losing significant charge, and the battery pack has no memory effect. Now, over longer stationary periods, the batteries will slowly lose their charge. If left at a 0% state of charge for a period of time, you may need a battery replacement. The batteries are guaranteed for 8 years, with a full replacement billed at $12,000 US. As usual, Tesla will sell you its own branded wall connector for your garage, which offers charging speeds of up to 44 miles of range per hour, has a 7.3 metre cable, and costs £475 excluding installation. When it comes to home charging, there's still complexity around the best charging hardware to choose and who is eligible for a government grant. And obviously the costs can vary depending on the distance from your main meter to the charger and other factors. Now, there's lots of advice out there, of course, to guide you. We consulted plugmein.com, who offer customers everything from choice of charger to installation and ongoing maintenance. They've advised us that even with increased energy prices, the cost of running an EV and charging it at home on a dedicated tariff is still only around half the cost of running your previous petrol or diesel car. If you don't charge at home, the story is very different, of course. Some DC public chargers, even Tesla superchargers, can be just as, or even more, expensive as filling up with petrol. Obviously, you can keep your costs down by using an EV-specific energy tariff and by sticking to off-peak energy rates. Setting charging times to do this can, of course, be done via the car's centre screen via a dedicated charging section, or, of course, by the Tesla app. The same app can also allow you to preset the climate in your car before you reach it, so that you don't have to strain the battery with a big initial need for cabin heating or cooling when you get in. And the app can quickly tell you where to find nearby Tesla supercharging and destination charging locations. It'd be even better, of course, if you were able to charge up using solar energy generated from panels on the roof of your house. Well, if your home has these solar charging panels that work with a photovoltaic system, the car can be set to charge preferentially using sunlight-sourced electricity and can even be set to charge in line with forecast phases of sunshine. Tesla makes solar panels, by the way, and can also provide a Powerwall home battery, which the last time we looked cost an extra £6,350 to conveniently store all the energy that any brand of solar paneling will produce. If you're new to EVs, you might be slightly put off by all the potential charging issues, but then again, you might not. After all, it's pretty unlikely that a typical Model S owner will be running this Tesla as an only car. And we're perfectly aware that the average person's daily round-trip commute is about a tenth of the operating range of this Tesla. Ah yes, range. We're back to that. Other EVs provide almost endless driver tools for maximising this. Things like efficiency modes, eco settings, and primarily a proliferation of brake regeneration options aimed at allowing you to either reduce or increase the amount of energy harvested as you slow the car. There's little of that here. It's surprising that Tesla doesn't feel the need to involve the driver more in the energy harvesting process. There is, of course, a regenerative braking system, but here it works automatically, allowing the powertrain to reclaim spent energy as you cruise, slow, or stop. As you take your foot off the accelerator, the electric motors work in reverse, becoming generators of electricity to recharge the battery. In fact, on a hilly road, it's possible to gain much of the energy that you used going uphill through regenerative braking on the way down. As you'd expect, the car's central screen offers lots of data to help plan your electric driving life. We've already mentioned how both this monitor and the associated app can brief you on your plug-in program and on charging locations. And of course, there are the usual real-time battery status readouts. But your Model S can certainly be a lot more proactive than that. Put a destination into the navigation system and it will helpfully tell you the proportion of battery charge that you'll still have when you reach where you're going, and the proportion that you'll have when you arrive back home. If the destination you've chosen can't be reached with the driving range you have available, then charging points along the route will be selected for you. And once you set off, the calculations continue based on your driving style, so you'll be advised if, for example, you're cruising at too fast a speed to reach your destination on the charge available. What else might you need to know? Maybe you'll be interested in the fact that as an EV owner, until 2025, you'll be exempt from London congestion charge and ULEZ charges. And until that time, you won't pay VED car tax, and benefit in kind taxation will be at a super low 2%. Now, at the time of this test, in early spring 2024, that BIK tax figure saw 20% taxpayers levied at £384 a year, while 40% taxpayers were BIK levied at £767 a year. As for ownership peace of mind, well, the Tesla warranty, 4 years and 50,000 miles, has pluses and minuses compared to the usual 3-year, 60,000 mile packages offered by obvious rivals. It's a bit low on the mileage side, but it covers you against most faults. As usual with an EV, the battery and drive unit get their own warranty. Here it's an 8-year package that lasts for 120,000 miles. And the package guarantees a minimum 70% retention of battery capacity throughout the plan's duration. Achieving that figure is unlikely to be an issue, as Tesla has an excellent reputation for battery longevity. Maintenance is obviously more straightforward than it would be for a combustion engine model. An electric vehicle does, after all, have 20% fewer moving parts. There's no fuel tank, no exhaust system, and obviously no internal combustion engine. You wouldn't think that, though, to look at the service intervals needed by some of this car's direct rivals. With the Model S, no annual service is required at all. Owners only need to bring their cars in to check certain components at specific intervals. Tesla doesn't state when they should be. The car will inform you if it needs attention. However, the brand recommends checking the brake fluid and the interior air filter every 2 years. Over-the-ear updates and remote diagnostics will help make some smaller maintenance jobs easier to carry out, and Tesla's mobile service technicians are also there to make your ownership life more convenient. There's a service section of the center screen's car menu which briefs you on tyre pressures and allows you to use a provided car wash mode. Less good news is found when it comes to insurance group ratings for this Model S, a top-of-the-shop Group 50 rating for either variant. Brokers, it seems, don't like electric cars. They're afraid of the cost of replacing the complex drive system after a complete wreck. However, don't give up a hope of relatively affordable insurance cover. LV offers a specific package for EV drivers, and Tesla has negotiated a special deal with Direct Line that a lot of its owners use. Ultimately, though, you might pay a little more to insure a Model S than would be the case with a direct rival. If you let Tesla guide you, you'll find that it won't be that much more. You might also expect gloomy news when it comes to the issue of residual values. Well, independent experts are saying that both Model S variants should retain around 50% of their value over 3 years and 36,000 miles. That's not terrible, but we have to point out that it lags behind what you get from a rival Porsche Taycan or Mercedes EQE. We also have to say that at present none of these EVs are getting anywhere near those predicted residual values in the real world. What about the green issues? Some in the green lobby get very angry about the whole pure electric car, zero emissions ethos, reckoning that this ignores the well-to-wheel demands of supplying the electricity that powers cars of this kind. Well, we'd respond by pointing out that these people usually completely overlook the fact that CO2 figures for conventional cars fail to take into account the logistical cost of getting fuel to the pump. Still, if you're one of those enviro-conscious folk, we'll tell you that using a well-to-wheels calculation based on typical use of the UK's energy grid, taking an average UK grid CO2 contribution of 367 grams per kilowatt, the burden of filling your batteries in this car would result in a theoretical 85 grams per kilometre of CO2 being released into the atmosphere. Now that's certainly good, but it's some way from being completely green. Which is also a comment you could apply to electric vehicle engineering as a whole. Lithium-ion batteries aren't yet completely recyclable in the way that the fuel cells used in hydrogen-powered vehicles are. Currently, when EV vehicles are reaching the end of their lives, the batteries are being reused as electricity storage buffers. After that, though, they can't simply be scrapped because lithium-ion has explosive elements. That's an issue. But then so is the pollution caused by combustion power. If you see the EV solution as the lesser of the two evils, and your choice of a battery-powered model must be from the large luxury part of the premium segment, then we think you'll still find plenty to interest you here. Tesla's aim with this Model S Plaid was to create the world's fastest accelerating production vehicle, and at the time of filming, this brand still just about held on to that title with this car. What we can say is that if you're to even approach the level of performance that's on offer here, you'll need to spend vastly more, which may be compensation for the disappointing realization for UK customers that there's no right-hand drive version. Now, you could argue that this top Plaid variant answers a question that few were asking when it first arrived, but you could also say that of the Model S itself, a car that's gone on to be an industry game changer. In this form, it's a fully fledged super saloon with the ability to carry the whole family at uber rapid journey speeds, even when a light dusting of snow falls. Add in the 373-mile range, and you're left with what might just still be the most desirable electric super saloon to date.